Season 4, episode 38. For people who are watching, I'm starting the podcast without Clough in his chair because he had to get up and check on his cat. So I'm like, this is the perfect time to start the podcast. More time Roland gets to talk, the better. So
makes it real.
When he does get back to his chair, I think I'm going to push him a little bit. We're going to talk about Canada Day because what you actually did something to me last year that changed the way I saw Canada Day. So last
year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So last year, I believe I was away for Canada. I was away for Canada Day because I remember when I told the book club for men that we were going to have a get together on Canada Day, half of them looked at me like I was nuts. And I'm like, well, you don't have to come, but I'm going to be stuck in a cottage with 4 kids and 2 moms. I don't think they're going to miss me if I'm gone for an hour to chat with you guys. But last year, close to Canada Day, you were, I felt like you were more in the space of considering what Canada Day is and what it means and what actually are we celebrating and whether what we're celebrating is right. This is the vibe I got off of you. And I think you were doing some reading at the time that pushed you into this space, I think. Anyway, long story short, there's a fossil phrase for you. You said to me, you said to me, hey, do you know what we're celebrating? Like, what are we celebrating? And then you gave me some tidbits on how Canada Day came to be and the twists and turns of us stepping on Indigenous people once again, because we can, because we have, because we want to continue to do. And it's back. You tweeted about Canada Day the other day.
It's back, baby.
It's back. You tweeted about Canada Day the other day, and it's got me thinking again. But this time, I feel I'm thinking and feeling more steadfast in my approach. What does Canada Day mean to me now, a year later, after you had provided me with some tidbits of knowledge that I've kind of dug into a little bit over the year? What does Canada Day mean to me? And I've arrived at a space where at the moment, Canada Day, for me, has become a day to reflect on my parents' decision to come to this country and to start a life here. And that this country, for all the good and bad, has provided them with the tools and the resources to have children and lead their children to a better place than what we think we would have had if my parents didn't come here. So for me, that's what Canada Day is now turned into. It is just a celebration of my parents and their journey to this country. And I know that this country has a history, there are negative parts of this history with the Indigenous people. Even I'm reading, on socials about just hating people of color. People are pushing it to that place, right? I've never felt the hate maybe the way that it truly does exist here. And I'm not Indigenous, so I can't speak for how the Indigenous people feel, but I can feel empathy, right? Like I can feel like if I were in their shoes, this is what I would feel, and I don't like it. So I don't know what Canada Day is for you anymore, but I know for Canada Day, for me, when I think about Canada Day, before hearing your thoughts and learning, Canada Day for me was a celebration of this country without understanding all of what this country is. And, I told you there's a lot of good memories attached to Canada Day for me, like my parents taking me downtown to Parliament Hill to see the fireworks at night. So, you get to stay up late, you get to party with a bunch of people you don't know, and everybody's being friendly. Like nobody's causing me any difficulty, even though, drunk people marching around downtown. And then there's like just the good feels of like my parents doing barbecue and just the day off where everybody was home, those things. But I'm good to let those things go now, and I'm good to start with my new path. That Canada Day for me is to celebrate my parents making the decision to come here and to do and be in a way that has led me to a place of privilege that I enjoy.
I don't have, I don't share. I think so your story that you laid down as far as, the fond memories of the barbecue and that, I feel like those were very much like other people's Canada days. I don't have a now. I'm gonna blame my memory partially. I'm gonna blame how I sort of take in memory, and there's always been a certain amount of my distractibility sometimes has kept me from truly taking in, reading the room. And I can admit that now. I think at some point I would have been more likely to say that there just wasn't much interesting going on around me. I would have blamed it on external factors, but I think that there's elements about me that I just, through my childhood and up to now, like I just did not pay attention. I kind of was in the moment, impulsive, kind of just working through whatever was right in front of me. So memory, as from childhood in general, is really quite fleeting for me. Like I don't, it ain't clear. So you having these, like, I'm a little jealous, like that you have such clear, well-formed memories of what Canada Day represents for you, because I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have any sense of what I ever did on Canada Day. I think, I mean, vaguely, probably my deepest, or let's say my most accessible memory is going down to, so I grew up in Oshawa, and we would go, I think we would go down to a place called Lakeview Park. It's a really, really nice park, We would have went down there, and we would have went and probably watched fireworks there. Yeah, but I don't, at a real basic level, I don't have a clear sense of what Canada Day means to me. So I think that what happens now as I start to, I mean, okay, so as a dad, that intersection for me, like, yeah, like we, as an adult, my go-to way to honor, and actually I shouldn't even say honor, my go-to way to sort of acknowledge this day is to go along with the general offerings of this day, which are the fireworks and the barbecue. And I'd say in recent history, when we moved to the block that we're currently living on, there's a party sort of every year, and we moved in quite close to Canada Day last time. It's also, well, actually, I'll get to the second part of the story. So up to last year, every year, that's what it would be. You'd bring out food, and we would all sit out on the street and celebrate the festivities. That's what it was. We're celebrating the festivities. And then kind of along the way, as I've brought in my relationships and probably my pursuit of trying to understand my own identity and being open to sort of that vulnerability, different stories come in. Asking a story or sharing a story about your upbringing, as I have sort of in writing and in poetry, invites other people to offer stories as well. And I think there's a kind of an unlocking of your thinking when you step into that process, if you dare to share. So I think in doing so, more stories have got in about stuff that's directly associated with what I might be writing about, which is, if I wrote about COVID. But other stuff comes in the door along with it. So I could write a piece about the current state of education right now and how tough it is to not have relationships and face to face. And that will go kind of get connected with, because, send it out into social media, out into cyberspace. And then all of a sudden that gets connected with somebody else's expression about relationships that's associated with, how Confederation and has stomped on many people, non-whites, since the origin. All of a sudden you start to realize, you're sort of talking about Canada Day in a kind of an adjacent way. So I don't have a clear I have far less of a clear understanding of what Canada Day means to me than I do of how other people see Canada Day. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the fact that I don't have a centered, pinned perspective on what Canada Day should be. Maybe that's what frees me up and allows me to sort of, almost in, I guess, a cavalier fashion, retweet out someone's comment about Canada Day events being canceled, I think, in Victoria, BC. Maybe that's what frees me up to ask a direct question, of you, like, what is it you're actually celebrating? What is Canada for? What is Canada Day for? I think I try to make it like a cheeky assessment statement, Canada Day is for, of, and as, like what is Canada Day? I like how you mentioned opening up the conversation to talk to your kids. And I think for me, one of the things that has happened, one of the things that has happened so I've been teaching from home since the April break, and off and on before that. And of course, this time last year, I was home as well. Some of the stuff that I was interested in, so the things that I was interested in, inevitably started to soak my kids, because I would interact with them more during the day when my thinking about these things would pop up. So I'd go upstairs for their snack recess and we'd have a conversation about something that just, maybe I was following that day as a conversation. So I think that my kids have been in the conversation about some of the topics that, like, we talked about George Floyd. We talked about Breonna Taylor. We talked about residential schools. Like, we've had these ongoing conversations about pride as well. So I'm happy on one hand that I've been able to start these conversations and let my kids into my thinking. I will definitely say it hasn't given me any clear sense of what Canada Day is. And I sometimes wonder why it is I don't have a clear sense of loving my country, like what that actually means. Because if we're going to talk about a birthday, part of sort of, I would say, if you're going to, if you're willing to sort of go to a celebration of a person or a place or a thing, you probably like that person, place, or thing. You may love that person, place, or thing. You feel some affinity towards that person, place, or thing. But the Canada Day, I don't have a sense of what that relationship is. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why. If I were to chase the conversation with my mom, she's a first generation Polish immigrant to Canada. She has mentioned before, what her stand is on, kind of politically, personally, socially, what Canada represents, why the family came to Canada, some of the stories of what it was like coming to Canada. As a let's say culturally different, but she and my family would have passed as white. So they had hardships as immigrants starting their families, but they were not, and the hardships of learning a new language. but they would not have been immediately impacted with they wouldn't have immediately been identifiable as immigrants. They were just another white family, working the Joe jobs to try and get the family up and running. So it's not clear. Not clear, dude.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You just keep rolling with it and see where it leads you, I guess. I
Mm-hmm.
know for me, it's clearer for me because it's my story's different than yours,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, dude, I just had a memory of being in summer school. I guess I guess summer school had started 1 year before the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in the gym, and we had this huge cake that was that was decorated as the Canadian flag.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it was probably right before, it was probably a day before we were going to be off for Canada Day, and then the weekend, and then back to summer school. And I just remember it was just a big party. All the kids are in the gym and they're cutting up this Canada Day cake, and Roland's loving his cake, so he's eating that cake and the red and white icing. Like, there's just so many good things attached to it for me that now when I think of where it came from is disturbing. And so I'm shifting my focus. I'm shifting my focus and I'm learning more. And when you were talking to your kids about George Floyd and pride, and these last couple of weeks in my class have been pretty heavy
Mm-hmm.
with talking about pride, and then talking about the 215 kids and residential school. And it's been emotionally exhausting for me as a teacher, because I'm walking that fine line of, I don't want to be the guy that's like preaching to these kids that have no power over. They're just there. They have to listen to me. I don't want to be that guy, but I also don't want to be the guy that dismisses these events happening in the world um, that hit so close to home, that it would be a shame to not educate, to not think critically, right? To not collaborate. The global competencies, like, it would be a shame to not mix these events with the competencies and have kids actually learn something real and use these
Mm-hmm.
skills and apply them. And I have to say, big thumbs up to my school for, in a way, forcing me to deal with these issues head on. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Every morning we have morning announcements. I guess they're school announcements. They don't have to happen in the morning anymore. It's a Google slide presentation. And every day I tend to use them in the morning when we gather together.
Mm-hmm.
And when my school board raised the pride flag in the morning announcement slideshow, there was a slide that was dedicated to it. So the kids are like, "What's this?" Like, the kids are like, "What's that slide all about?" So it's like, well, I can't ignore the slide. It's there. Therefore, we will discuss it. And the same with the 215 children. There was a slide dedicated to that. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, like, boom, it's in your face. The kids are like, what is it? What does it mean, for the ones that don't know or haven't heard, or the parents haven't spoken to them? So I say, we're going to talk more about it. Now's not the time. Like, it's morning announcements. We're going to get to these things, just not now. I'm not prepared to do this now. I don't want to do this now. We will do this. And so over the course of the time passing, my students and I did talk about pride. Um, we talked about the raising the flag, what it means to us as a Catholic school system, what it should mean to them as students in the system, what it means to me as an educator in a system, a parent of the system. My kids go to school in the system. So we had that great conversation, and there was some pushback. I don't know. I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast. I know I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it to you. There was a child or two who basically came out and said, "Pride means gay. Gay means bad."
Hmm.
These are the students' words, and I found myself in a position where I felt the need to value the student's opinion based on the student's lived experience and why that is the conclusion the student has, and balance that with that is an opinion. And if we look at the reason why we're all here, which is to learn, to grow, to be in a safe and comfortable environment to do so, there are certain ways that we can talk and we can't talk in order for this to be a safe environment.
Hmm.
Um, and I came out of it okay, or at least I felt okay coming out of it. And I think from what I could observe, the student who made those comments didn't feel like I had stepped on him.
Okay.
And all the other students in the room who disagreed with him didn't feel like I stepped on them. I focused in on what is important. What are we here to talk about? Why is it important for us to value anybody who's sitting in front of us? Right? So I brought it right down to us. Said, hey, there's 22 of us. There's me and there's an EA. How do you want to feel while you're here with me?
Hmm. Yeah.
Let's just go. Let's just like, how do you want to feel? How do you want me to treat you? And I said to them, I love doing this. They love it too. I said to them, look around the room. 90% of this class is black. Do you want me to tell you being black is wrong? And do you want me to treat you negatively because of your skin color? They're like, no, of course not. I said, then why would I do that for anything else about you? Let's just zero in on that. How do you want to feel with me? I want to feel good. I want to learn. I want to be happy. Okay. Is it fair to say that we should all work towards that in this class? Yes. Then let's do that.
Hmm.
Let's do that. So instead of saying you're black, you're bad, or you're a girl, that means bad, we're not going there here. Here is you're all welcome. It's my job to teach you. It's my job for you to feel relatively good here. Let's do this.
Hmm.
That was pride. Then we hit the 215, and oh my goodness. They're like, Mr. C, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, that's a loaded question, right? So we talk about residential schools. I read some books to them about residential schools and the fact that kids were forced to go to a school and live there, even though they may not have wanted to, and that they were not always treated well there.
I was reading this morning. There's I think in Brandon, Manitoba, um, another school, another hundred, um, another 100 bodies found. I believe I was reading that this morning. So,
That I haven't seen that yet, but I'm sure it'll
mhm.
pop up soon enough. So then, we go there. Same thing. Hey, while you're here with me, do you want me to be able to do whatever I want to you? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, again, let's look at this through a lens of what we're experiencing right now and how we're experiencing it. And think about how you would feel if this was you, right? So there's that perspective piece, that empathy piece, the critical thinking. Like, let's think about this. Let's just not ignore it because it happened a long time ago or that it didn't happen to us. There's no change when we do that. We just move on with, this is what happened. We live with it. It's over. No, we need to always be looking to the future. How can we make things better? How can we improve? How can we make sure that people are being treated properly? So it was loaded. Those lessons were loaded, but and somebody asked me, how do you do it? How did you do it? I said, I brought it right back to where we're at. This is where we're at. This is our learning environment. How do you want it to be? Because if being this is wrong and being that is wrong, and I use that, you're not going to feel so hot if I start treating you the way that some people believe these people should be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I have to tell you some of the kids, and they didn't come right out and say it, but I'm inferring based on some of the things that they said that they're basically saying to me, we're really happy to have a teacher that looks more like us because we've never really seen that before. In the old country, everybody looked like us. Here, you look like us. You talk to us about our food. You talk to us about how we might dress or the language we speak. They say, one of the kids said to me, it's really weird that you keep getting student X to translate student Y's thinking because student Y can't speak English. So why do you keep giving that student airtime? And I'm like, because he's in our class. If he was an outsider, I'd be like, take a hike, bro. I'm trying to teach you. You're not in my class. But he's one of us. He's one of us. He's got ideas. I give him work to do. I expect him to do what he can with the work. I want to hear what he's got to say. I still have to write a report card for him. So I need to know what he's thinking. I need to know, is he showing me, demonstrating the understanding, the skills that I'm teaching? They're floored, and they're in grade 3, and they're like, why do you let so-and-so translate for so-and-so? Who cares what he has to say? He can't speak English. I'm like, they're in grade 3, and they've already got this idea that once you start to speak English, you are on a higher level than everybody else. I'm like, no. I said it, I joke with my students. I say, you know what? He probably does math better than half of you do, and he can't speak English. And when I look at his math, I'm like, how come you 10 don't know what he's doing? And then we all have a chuckle. But I've been bringing it back to the group. And hey, if I'm the leader of the group, how do you want me to treat you? And do you want me to treat you differently because you might look different or talk different? I said, so if somebody wants, not if somebody, we're all going to love who we want to love. And your teacher's not going to stand in your way. So you know what? You want to feel the burn? You'll feel it once you step outside of this little micro community of ours. You'll feel it because people will tell you you're wrong. People will tell you you're evil. They'll tell you whatever. Is it not part of my job to help build these kids up in a way so that they're not the ones walking around spitting that stuff out, and that they have some resilience built in, that they know that they're loved, that they're cared for, that I hope they remember that when we talked about these things, that we did it in a way that we tried to honor each individual person. I told them, it's not my job to judge who you love. It's not my job to judge what language you speak. I judge what I'm teaching you about math and language and this and that. I judge those things. I evaluate them. I report to your parents. But I want everybody in here to learn. I want everybody in here to feel like, okay, I go to school and it's a safe place for me. I don't have to worry. That's what I want. And that's what all that means to me. So are you in or out? And they're all like, we're in. Okay, that's cool. And even if you do, I said, you don't have to agree with my opinions. And I said to them, I don't think I'm providing you with my opinions. I think I'm providing you with the facts. I'm a school teacher. You're in my classroom. How would you like me to treat you differently because of the color of your skin, or who you tell me your parents love, or who you love? Do you really want to do that? They're like, no, we don't want to do that. None of us want to feel that way. So then we're not going to do that to each other. And if you believe something, then you can believe it all you like. But if you come here and your beliefs are going to cause people to feel unsafe, that's not cool. That's not what school's for. And that's my hard line. That's not what school's for. That's not why they pay me to be with you every day. So that's a non-negotiable one. but you're free to have your opinions, but you will consider the way you express them here, just like I do as your teacher. I can crush all of you easily. That's not why I'm here. I was lucky that worked, and it worked in grade 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that looks like in a grade 7 classroom. I will tell you though, with the girls who game, I have entered a new space with them that at first they laughed at me for. They don't laugh at me anymore. So when I'm with the girls who game, I don't even call them girls anymore, because I said to them, I don't know how you identify. And
Yeah.
and I don't know. Number one, I said to them, okay, number one, it's called the Girls Who Game program, and you joined it. So if I refer to you as a group as the Girls Who Game, please excuse me. That's the name of the program. And so I'm going to honor that. Unless you come out and tell me something, I'm not deviating from that. But
That's fascinating, though. That's fascinating. How did the kids receive that opportunity? That's a really cool equity moment. That's a really cool equity moment.
I think so. At first, I think there were some chuckles I could see in the screen from the cameras that were on. They were like, "Whoa, he's going like we don't know where he's going with this." And I said to them, I said, "Listen, it's called the Girls Who Game, so I'm gonna call you the GWG team, the Girls Who Game team. But when I refer to you, I'm not gonna call you guys. I'm not gonna call you girls. I don't know how you identify." And the beauty for me of this is that their challenge this term, their challenge was to create a community of the future that a community of the future that was that involved gender equality and what's the other one? Sustainable energy. And so I said, well, I'm modeling for you if there's going to be gender equality, and we're talking about gender equality and what to do to action that and how to think in order to move in that direction. I said, I'm not going to call you guys or girls. I don't know how you identify. So, and you've not told me. So I'm going to call you kids, grade 7s, or folks, because all three of those are factual. You are in grade 7. You are still kids, and you are folk. So I've been very careful with my language with them, and I'm trying to honor who they are and who they think they are, who they may be, who they may want to be. I don't know. But I tell them, I say, I want you to produce here. I want you to be awesome. I want you to achieve. I don't want you to feel like every time I come in the room, oh shit, Mr. C's here and he's going to call me a girl and I don't identify as a girl and I don't like that, but I'm not going to say anything. That takes up a lot of headspace, bro. That could be spent on doing the task at hand. And then one more thing I want to say, and then I'm going to be quiet for a little bit and let you talk. Oh, shoot, I lost it. Oh, I got it back. Okay. So as we're ramping up the Girls Who Game experience, near the end, the girls have to create a video of their community of the future, and they have to present. It's an elevator pitch. They've got 5 minutes to present their community of the future and what they did and why they did it. Mm-hmm. And so I said to their classroom teacher, who's the co-coach, I said, listen, we need to give them more time. They don't have enough time they don't have the 2 times we meet for 40 minutes is not enough. They need more time. So she's like, okay, cool. She said she gives them time at the end of the day. I said, okay, I will do the same because I don't think it's fair for my co-coach to have to do that all the time. So I said, I'll start giving them, if you give them 2 extra times, I'll give them 2 extra times. Now we're looking at 6 opportunities during the week to get together and to work on this and to get it done and not have to do it all at night. Mm-hmm. And the first 2 times I had my open meet with them, they weren't talking. Their cameras were all off and they weren't talking. And my camera was on, And it was my asynchronous time. So I had two computers going, one computer with the girls who game, one computer with my students who were in for extra help or whatever. So, I would work with my students and I'd mute my mic and then talk to the girls who game, say, hey, how's it going? Is there anything you need from me? And no, no, no. So I email their teacher and I tell their teacher, listen, I don't know what's going on, but I don't hear any collaboration. I don't see it. Like, is this a waste of time? The kids are not responding to me, or they're
Mhm.
just not, they don't seem to be doing anything. So she said, I'll talk to them. And I said, okay. So she spoke to them and she got back to me. She said, you know what, Roland, they feel like after talking with them, here's the message. They feel like you're kind of there supervising them and they don't feel comfortable. I said, well, I am supervising them. Like
Yeah.
they're not in a room by themselves. They're in a digital space that I've provided for them. And I'm there to make sure, like, it's a school activity. So we're making sure our job is supervision and instruction. I'm doing my job. And she's like, they get the vibe that you're kind of like watching them. I said, okay. So she's like, turn off your camera and see what happens. I said, no problem. If that's all they need me to say, hey, welcome, go nuts, work on this. I'm going to shut this meeting down at 4:00. FYI. I'm here if you need me, put it in the chat because I'm muting this and I'm muting that so I can work with my kids if they need me. They're like, okay. You should have heard the chatter after I turned off my after I said to them, I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. I'm going to turn off my camera and turn off my mic, get to work. I'm here if you need me, and I'll let you know when I'm going to shut this thing down. It changed everything. They started talking. At some points, they were talking so much, I had to turn down the volume because my kids could hear them in my mic. They're like, who's talking over there? I'm like, it's the girls who game, ignore it. They're working. These little tweaks, right? And listening to people provide you with their thinking and their feeling goes a long way. And I really enjoy the Girls Who Game Club. I feel like this year now that I'm looking back and reflecting, it's been a guiding light for me to work with these kids and to get my mind in other places other than the nonsense where I've had my mind for most of the year. So the innovation, the tech integration, the conversations, the coaching and mentoring component of it, the learning that I've gotten from these kids has been like A1, buddy. Fantastic. And I think it's helped save me this school year. I'm done talking, man.
That was awesome. I want to throw an idea into the mix. I gotta check to see when this was. Near the end of May, I came across a tweet. The tweet was from I follow an educator, Javier Davila or Davila, could be. He's doing some really. He came. Assumption. Javier came across my Twitter feed because of work being done, because of the work that they were doing in support of Palestine. So that's how Javier popped up on my feed. Javier posted out something that came out of Ottawa Catholic District School Board, and it was a memo to staff in response to talking about Palestine in the classroom. And I think a lot of school boards do this. I'm assuming they will send out something as a go-to notes or a Coles Notes version of here's some resources. Here's how you can facilitate these conversations in class. It's interesting though that little extra step that was noted in here, and it makes me it touches on what we've come through so far talking about Canada Day. I think it also touches on your experience in the classroom with the student sort of doing that calling out or sort of like sharing a highly biased view within the classroom, and how do you sort of recreate the safe space so that an individual can grow from a statement like that, sort of identifying a negative belief system about other people, but also effectively protect individuals that may be harmed or made fearful by somebody saying something like that. And then landing on your girls who game. So the memo that came out, the lines that Javier highlighted and what other people are talking about, focusing on this. So the memo in itself, I'll retweet it to you. I can post it to the decoded hashtag, but it sort of starts off talking about identifying the school board's deep concern for what's happening in Palestine. So they kind of had that as the preamble, but then it's this line here that's really interesting. As educators, our role is not to be proactive in raising complex political issues, but rather being responsive to those who are impacted by them. And I'm always that I get that line from my most notable sort of connection to that is when you're from some of the work that I've done with countering bullying in schools, and often I won't say often, but the shift is that encountering a situation where bullying might be occurring, the key here is to primarily support the safety and the needs of the victim. You go there first. You don't necessarily step up and address the bully, the individual, apart from maybe a stop or a cease, like whatever it is to do that. But then you immediately shift to caring for you don't want that extra focus, the feeding of the bully, so to speak. And that line is interesting in relation to this political conversation because, there's a whole lot of stuff that's popping up in the classroom that can be in even the conversation that you had there as well. It's to navigate that space, to navigate am I spending more time talking about the political issue rather than supporting the learning of the students? I think that for some educators, I think this is kind of like the 1.0 thinking from a few years ago. If you remember in there was maybe 5-6 years ago, there was a kind of a shift, I'll say, in Twitter, where a lot of people were posting up that teaching is inherently political, and to not address that education and being a teacher is political is kind of naive. And there were a lot of different variations of that sentiment being pushed out on Twitter. I feel like the avoidance, I feel like that particular memo kind of speaks to a mindset about teaching that I don't know if it's congruent with where we're at. Like, I feel like it's almost impossible not to sometimes be directive, to sort of make sure that enough of the information is being seen. So not directive to shut down something, but directive to make sure that you have the best possible information on the table, I guess, depending on the developmental level of the kid. And I was talking about the same thing in relation to this statement with a colleague, an English teacher, and she was saying that, back before social media, not back, it's hard to imagine this time, but back when newspapers were still newspapers and TV news were our singular feed. I mean, almost every classroom had a Toronto Star subscription, at least in the schools that I were in, and you could easily go down and get copies and have them in your classroom. So she was remarking that back in the day, especially for her 12U English students, every class started with let's talk about what's going on in the news. And that opportunity to sort of unpack and work through was also what would I call it? So you're doing your novel study, you're doing whatever the regular lesson is, and you can kind of feel like the lesson is kind of flagging down. It's like, okay, let's shake it up. Let's go back to the news again. So it was also like what's that called? Not a rejuvenator. What do you want to call that? What are those activities? you got like icebreakers to start the day, but then you have another one that's energizer. That's what it is. So it was like an energizer in the lesson. You were able to sort of go back. Let's talk about the news again then. And every kid would get lit up talking about something in the news. So she was remarking, like, would that have been considered counter to, like, would that have been something that this memo would be saying, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. And I would say, like, there's a whole lot of educators that are like the educators I follow on Twitter that I really appreciate what they're posting up. I'd love to be in their classrooms. I would love to see how the things that they're posting up on Twitter translates to the conversations and the way of being in their classroom. The other thing that I love too is that the individuals that I follow and I'm getting wisdom from, very rarely, like there's not a lot of, hey, here's the great activity I did in class today. I'm not getting fed that way with my current feed. I'm not getting sort of like the lesson plans and the templates and the organizers. I've all but sort of erased that from my feed. Yet I'm still following teachers. I'm following a lot of educators, and they're sort of in their vulnerability sharing what their political stance is, how they're fighting constantly these political battles that may be invisible to many, but are visible to a lot of other people on socials. And I think to myself, much like you navigating this space where the kid had that high blurt factor and said something that was offensive, I would love to be in a classroom. I would love to be in the classroom. It's a little bit like me trying to remember what, not having memories of Canada Day. Like, I don't have lived experience of being in someone's classroom that spoke directly to these things. And the last thing I just want to drop into there is that back in the day, I was thinking about probably my strongest memory for Canada Day is this is an I think moment, only because I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly. However, I think that back in the day, and we're going back to the 80s here, growing up in Oshawa, there was always a GM picnic that happened in the summer. And it was massive. It was sort of like, it might even be, I don't know if it's GM or CAW, but it was everybody that was working in the automotive sector would go down to Lakeview Park. And it may have been on Canada. See, my brain is putting it together that was what would happen either the day before or right around Canada Day. So it's funny, that's part of the memory. But the stronger part of the memory would be me and my mom going down to Lakeview Park. We did this several times, and we collected beer cans and pop bottles. And we would carry those back and take them to the store. So we had a little sort of business out of it. We would go and collect stuff. And I'd find other stuff too. Like, that's where I first saw someone with one of those metal detectors. I saw a lot of people out there with metal detectors, and they're like finding watches and earrings and lots of stuff that's sort of fallen into the grass because of the partying going on. So it's almost like that small business venture is a stronger memory for me about Canada Day than anything that would be historical or cultural. It's something about the GM picnic, something about being able to make $25 in beer cans, and something about thinking to myself, geez, I want one of those metal detectors. That's cool. Cool tech. You got to talk again. That's it. Your turn.
I get it. I hear you. I'm glad we hit this. We hit this realm here, because if we could quickly jump over to another topic, and that is one where you and I over the last, I don't want to say you and I, like as a combo, have moved into this territory around equity and inclusion and diversity over the last year. Has been, for me it's part of my lifelong learning. And it's, people have commented that who I am to them has shifted. And this is the other cool thing too. I don't have a lot of really tight relationships. I know people and they know me. There's been a lot of interaction with many different people, but we're friendly, but I don't know if we're actually friends. And so to hear people on the periphery say, wow, who you are has really shifted. Like, there's there's a lot more talk around equity and awareness and diversity. Like, it's hard for them to reconcile. And my position is that this is a great lesson for me and a great awareness for me that there's nothing to reconcile. People are going to grow, people are going to change. This is important for me to get a grasp of. The next time I run into somebody that I haven't seen in years, we can start with where we left off, where we were when I worked with that person, or the things we talked about back then, and be open to what is happening now in terms of who they are, what they're about, what their interests are. It's like instead of focusing on what was, you refocus on what is and how it came to be. And it's I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what would have happened if this pandemic didn't happen. Because from this pandemic, a lot of good things have come for me in terms of my own learning, my own reflection. It's also burned into my mind that moving forward in my life, we will now refer to this pandemic as like a major turning point in our lives for a number of different reasons. For my kids, it will be, hey, remember how I started high school? For my other kid, it'll be remember when like my hockey season ended because of this, and this and this. And for me, it'll be remember when I opened my mind up a little bit more than I thought I could, to start reading more and to start engaging with people more in a different way, to create new friendships and bonds that would never have existed before, to learn about myself in terms of like the work I do as a teacher and what's important to me, and what motivates me. Because we talk about, you should see me talk about our current government with my students. And what I mean by that is, when my kids say, why can't we go back to school? I don't go on a tirade about my perspective of this government and how incompetent they are. I don't do that. I just say, well, you know what, our premier, Mr. Ford, he says it's not time. It's not safe. We are not to move in that direction at this time. And as I'm saying it, I'm dying inside. But it's not my place to talk about that with them. It's not appropriate, in my opinion. It's also not grade 12 world history, right? Like it's not connected. It's not civics class or anything. It's a grade 3 class, and I certainly have no problem being factual with them. Lately, I'm wondering how I'm supposed to reintegrate after all this. How am I supposed to reintegrate? How will I reintegrate? Because I've learned some things about me that I'm not particularly happy with, and I'm not ready to be let loose back into the world the way it was before. So what do I do? How do I reconcile that? These are things right now that are kind of running through my head. I'm really happy that summer's coming, because that means time at the beach with my family, where I like to be, as you know, and where I like to reflect and where I like to do some more thinking. And there's going to be a lot of time for reading and considering what comes next. So I'm trying not to waste the space I'm in right now, even though some of it doesn't feel good. I do not want to waste that space. I want to milk it for all it's worth, good or bad.
Yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about the reintegration too.
Do you have concerns about the reintegration, or I know I have some acquaintances that I know that are, this whole time, I think they've ignored the here and now, and all they wanted was the reintegration. They're still complaining about the first lockdown, right? They're like, we were locked down, the government held us back. they refuse. I don't think they ever opened themselves up publicly to what's actually happening here. They've been focused on the whole time, salivating from day one on reintegration day.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't I don't like that. I was just about to tell you I don't know what I think. I know what I think. I don't like it. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like they let a whole chunk of time pass where there could have been enlightenment for them in one way or another. There could have been some growth in learning and understanding how people are. The other day, my wife sent me a screenshot from social media about one of my friends. And she said, "What a shame. I didn't know your friend. Look at what your friend said in this post. It is so anti-vax and anti-mask. And yet I've never seen your friend display this thing in real life." And I said, "You know what, hon?" I said, this person's always been respectful with me in conversations we've had around vaccination and mask. And I said, and this friend has, in the times I've been out in public with this friend has never, even though this friend doesn't necessarily believe, this friend does not put other people at risk. So there's an opinion, and a very strong opinion, but it does not interfere with the safety of others. So this friend is not going places and saying, "I refuse to wear the mask. I'm not wearing the mask." And then I reminded my wife of how much I dislike the mask. But I still wear it because I do respect other people. So if I'm somewhere and someone's wearing a mask, I will put one on to say, "Listen, whether you get it or not, or I get it or not, I don't want you to feel like I don't want you to feel like I don't care about who you are and where you come from and what you're about. I'll wear the mask. Um, but if you don't care and we're distant, I'm probably not going to wear the mask." So, like grocery pickup, I'm in my car, all my windows are closed, and I pop the trunk in the SUV, so you can see right through and you can hear right through. I don't wear my mask when I'm there because they're so far away from me. But sometimes they come around to the window to talk to me, and before I lower my window, I grab my mask and I put it on my face to say, like, "Hey, if you're gonna come around and talk to me about something and you're doing your job, I'll put my mask on." Like, I dislike wearing the mask. Not and my wife says, "Is it a manly thing? Do you not wear the mask because you?" And I'm like, "No, it's not a manly thing. I don't like people telling me what to do. That's
Mm-hmm.
at the heart of who I am based on how I was raised. I don't like people telling me what to do. It doesn't feel good on my face. But I'm not going to go to a store and be that guy. I'm not wearing the mask. You can't make me." No. If I'm going to go into the store, I'm going to shop, I'm going to buy, I'm going to follow their rules. I'm going to put my mask on. I'm going to do what we've been told is safe. And then I take my mask off when I leave. Um, and then if I'm not with people, I'm not wearing a mask. If I'm socially distant, like at school, before the new rules came into effect, we didn't have to wear a mask outside on duty, and I would take my mask off. And I would say
Mm-hmm.
to the kids when I'm on duty, "Hey, can you stay back? We're outside, but we're supposed to be keeping a safe distance. And Mr. C's taking a break from his mask. So I want us to be safe. And I'm also enjoying this allowance." But then it changed again. Then it was, when you go outside, put your mask on. So now I'm outside and I'm wearing my mask. And the kids are like, "Hey, we thought you liked to take a mask break." I said, "Well, the rules have changed. We're all wearing our masks outside now because none of us can stay distant from each other while we're out here." And they're just looking at me and they can see it in my eyes. I'm like, I'm not going to push back on that. It's my job. I'm here to model for you, keep you safe. I'm going to be responsible. Now, If I've had my 2 doses of my vaccine, will I still wear a mask? It depends on where I am. If I'm going into a store, I'm going to put my mask on. I'm going to be respectful of the people around me. Even though I've been vaccinated, I'll still keep my distance. If I'm going to go into a store, I'm going to put my mask on. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to follow the rules. I don't want to make people uncomfortable. I don't want to cause conflict if there doesn't need to be a conflict. This is the world we're in. I've got acquaintances that agree with it, disagree with it. Some people have been open to it. Some people have been salivating for reintegration from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, they sound like a caveman, the way that they're talking in the conspiracy theories and stuff. They sound like a caveman, but that's their right to do so. It's their right. And I hate the mask as much as everybody else does, but I'm not willing to be fighting 24/7 with people. I'm not willing to have people feel like I don't care for them. No, that's not cool. I may not like you, right? I may not even know you, but I'm not going to put you in a position where you're going to feel like I'm trying to harm you. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
harm anybody. And my wife is big on when you go to Walmart for grocery pickup, do you wear your mask? I'm like, no, hon, I don't. Unless they come up to the window, I don't put my mask on. There's more than 6 feet between where I'm sitting and where they are putting the food in the car. They're wearing their mask. I'm not wearing the mask. Now, some people do, and that's fine. I don't. That's their business. If you roll around to the window and you want to talk to me, I'll put my mask on.
Mm.
But if I'm sitting in the front seat and you're in the trunk and you're just putting stuff in, I'm not putting my mask on. That's where I land.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about all of that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think part of what has so in my fam, I was the one that always was going out and doing I was primarily the recon guy. So I was going out, I was interacting with the world a lot more than yeah, more interactive than the rest of my family. So part of it's not that almost a bad, like the risk tolerance, not risk avoidance, but the risk tolerance, like that for people can be anxiety inducing. Like just the idea of going out of your house and feeling the stress of I could catch this anywhere, right? So people are getting geared up that way. I think because I spent a lot of time following the rules, the actual physical distance, the wear the mask when you go inside, the sanitize your hands, the keep your hands away from your face, the no hugging, like every single one of these things I followed. And I think that created a mindset for me that you follow the rules and this will be okay. Just keep following the rules, follow the science. So I never got swept up. I never got too swept up in the ambiguousness of what happens if. I was firmly in what happens when. Like I was trying to make it more as active as possible, even to the point of thinking if I did get sick for some reason, what's the plan for the family? And we talked about that. We talked about who would how we would do quarantine in the house, and we'd have to switch up what bathroom was being used, and someone would only, someone basically get the main bedroom because there's a bathroom right off of it, so that becomes their own little sort of suite. So we talked about the logistics of outcomes, and we made plans. So I think that as we step forward into the next layers of returning to non-mask wearing, so part of it is I'm not stamping this moment as returning to normal. Like I don't have that mindset, and I never had from the moment since March 13th, 2020, when we were told we weren't coming back. I logically, emotionally, socially psychologically assessed the room and said, we don't come back from this. We don't come back when we return from this. We're not walking back through the same door. It just won't be that. So I kind of accepted that. However the however life occurs after everyone has received their second dose is not the normal that everyone was thinking they wanted or was planning for a year and change ago. So with that being said, where I kind of roll is what's directly in front of me. And if what's directly in front of me is the fact now I've had my second shot, many haven't had their first. The science is that, any step I take to not wear a mask and to stop the other, like the health protocols that I followed also kept me from getting a cold the last year. So there's an element of this that I feel like I have choice. Do I continue to follow the protocols just because I really don't want to catch a cold either? Like that'll kind of protect me. And even if I'm not wearing one of the high level masks, just the fact that I have something kind of covering my mouth and nose means that I'm less likely to touch my face in that space, right? So I think for me, I'm sitting in a sort of a practical space. From the beginning, I sort of sat in a practical space. I also acknowledge that the life that I have and the privileges that I have allow me to think about my world in this way. I'm not, though I am in schools and working with students and in close contact with students when we were there. I'm not one of the community classroom teachers that has been and has continued to support the students face to face through this pandemic. So there's elements of comfort blanket that I have that allow me to even talk about this so practically. Moving forward, I likely will continue to wear my mask for the short term. I think that what the science will tell me is that there's other individuals that have not. I think the science will tell me, and what it's telling me is that I could carry it and give it to somebody else still. And there is a higher likelihood that if I'm not wearing the mask and I'm not sanitizing my hands, that I could be a carrier and infect someone. I'm asymptomatic, but I give it to somebody else. I don't get sick, but I can give it to somebody else. So anything that allows me to kind of shed in a safe way, I want to. But yeah, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to ask somebody something. Can I ask you a question for the podcast? Karen just walked in the room, my spouse. You don't have to answer. You just have to nod your head. Will you continue to wear a mask, even if it becomes optional? Short term, yeah. Yeah, that's a short term, yeah. So Karen's an educator too. So she'll continue to wear the mask. That was a quick guest spot, eh? We don't have guests on here often.
No, we don't.
We don't. I think that might be the second guest that we've ever had. Sometimes the kids pop in. But yeah, so we're,
Well, my wife is not near me, but I can tell you exactly what she said to me because my wife and I both have received our second dose as well. And as we're leaving the location where we got our vaccination, there's a bin right at the door saying if you can take your mask off and throw it out, this is the bin to do it. And we're walking out after just having taken a selfie in front of the I got vaccinated thing. And I take mine off and I toss it into the thing and I go to her, do you want me to throw yours out? She goes, no. I'm wearing this to the car. So she's like, there's still people around everywhere. I'm like, yeah, but they're nowhere near us. She's like, no, I'm good. I'll wear it to the car. I said, okay. So my wife certainly is on that other end. unfortunately, in the line of work you and I have, I don't believe it. I just can't see the school board saying, okay, masks are optional now. I think it's either going to be, no, you're still wearing it, or we don't have to wear them anymore. I mean, I guess then certain people could still wear one if they wanted to. Like, I guess I could stand in front of my class, wear a mask, and still teach if I want, even though I've been told, we're not providing you with masks anymore. You don't need to wear them. We're not giving them to you anymore. I
Mhm.
guess people could still wear a mask, right? Who's going to stop me from wearing a mask?
Well,
But
I think that'll be our next interesting level of conversations
and I
where,
think for
because,
us, because we're teachers, I think that's going to drag on for a bit. I think I'm
yeah,
going to be wearing a mask at work when other people are not wearing a mask at work anymore.
I think part of the conversation will come from where I mentioned before, similarly to the Ottawa Catholic Board saying, we're not here to make political statements. And the perception could be, once once the rules say we don't have to follow the protocols anymore, that you continuing to wear the protocols, there could be the perception that that's a political statement. You're centering this in your practice, in a way that it's inevitable, that it's like you can't avoid it as a conversation piece. At some point, it might just kind of become invisible. But yeah, if you're one of the 2 or 3 teachers, September, October, whenever this date is, that still continues to wear your gear, that'll be some really interesting conversations. I'm imagining that some boards will pop up and say, like, there'll be some strong language around not wearing the masks anymore.
You think so, eh?
I think I'm imagining that it'll come up in some way, some discussion about not, because I can't see, this is no longer something that has a clear, like, if the school board said to you, we're all clear, the numbers are where they should be. Is that enough for you to personally assess and trust? What's your personal criteria that will allow you to feel that level of safety to not wear the mask inside spaces?
I think that when they do that, they're going to be 100% sure that they are legally not doing anything that's going to cause me to be unsafe. That's what I believe.
I think so too. I think so. I think they're going to try to do that. But here's the kind of kicker to that. You're not a teacher 100% of the day. So how do they mitigate the possibility? I'm be interested to see how they mitigate the possibilities of, so they tell you, it comes down to that transmission conversation, right? So if you, doesn't come down to it, but this is where I'm landing, the transmission conversation, that whatever gives them, when they give the go ahead, whatever that might be, of course they're going to say it's coming from what the local health unit is saying.
Right.
Is that enough for you to trust to sort of move in that direction? I guess that's it.
For me, yes.
Okay.
Because I'm biased. I don't want to wear the mask.
Yeah.
I'm biased, whereas my wife might question it. And here's the other thing too. I think I'm still going to keep my face shield.
Yeah.
Because
that's the part you like?
if I'm well, not that I like, but if I'm doing guided reading, because remember, we're going to be allowed to be close to kids again.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a kid sitting beside me that is snooting and snotting all over the place,
yeah.
What happened in the past was, I'm like, sit down and please don't touch my pencils and stuff because you're rubbing your face and your nose and you're sick. Now it might be like, come on over and have a seat. Just let me get my shield because you're clearly sick. You know how many times I've gotten sick from my students? Like
every time. I'll call it every time. Every time you've been sick,
every time I've been sick, it's because of the work I do. And I'm sitting down beside them and they're literally snotting and snooting everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in my mind, I think, oh, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before I get it. And there have been times where I've gotten away with murder, and the next thing you know, I've got the flu and I'm knocked on my rear end for a week
Yeah.
because like 8 kids in my class had it, and it finally got to me. Um, so I might keep my shield for that and be like, hey, look at you, you're dying. I'm wearing the shield, so at least I've got one bit of protection between me and you. I don't think I'll wear a mask. I'd rather wear the shield so if they're sneezing or whatever. Now, here's the
That
thing.
splash factor, right? The splash factor.
They're like, well, it's still gonna get under and around. Yeah, I get it, but I don't need to get snot in my face. Like, I get it. I get it. The particles are still everywhere, but there is that. I don't want anything on my face. That's
Yeah.
happened. It's happened in
Yeah.
primary. Kid comes over to ask you a question, kaboom, and I'm very dramatic. I'm like, whoa, man, you just sprayed me, and
Yeah.
I'm literally like, get a Kleenex and doing this. I know that stuff got in my nose and in my eyes, but what are you gonna do at that point? I just say to them, you don't need to come right in my face. Like, I get it. I'll come to you. But when you're sneezing and sniffling and squirting, you don't need to be this close to me.
Yeah, I got a good one when I was in a community classroom one time. My mouth was open.
Oh,
Mouth was open. I was leaning right in, and I was on one of those. I was on a stool, and it happens. I was on a stool leaning forward. We were working on a task, and I should have kept my head down, but I heard the and I lifted up, and as I like, if I kept my head down, then it just would have kind of splashed on the top of my head. But
hmm
because I heard it, I went to kind of move, and the student didn't get their arm up fast enough to sort of, and we were just face to face, and it was like full on, and my glasses were coated, like it was just, so it happens, right? It
yeah,
happens.
it happens.
And this as an extension of everyday life in school, right? Yeah.
Hey, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, you too.
Did you draw anything?
I did.
Oh, it's the maple leaf with the pride colors, or at least that's how I'm interpreting it. And the leaf looks like it's exploding, Clough. Is that what's happening?
I think a little bit. I think that's where I was heading. Expanding,
Expanding,
kind of
exploding.
kind of kind of getting pulled apart into some pieces. I don't know.
I like it. We've had some responses to a question I pushed out on Twitter about
Oh, okay.
Canada Day. And, well, I'll tell you what I said. So what are your thoughts about Canada Day? What is it that you celebrate with respect to that day?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a couple of people chime in and say, one person said that they're mixed. What's really cool is one person said, I think that as a country, we have made plenty of mistakes. This is Laura. Laura said, I think that as a country, we've made plenty of mistakes, but we're a young country, and that Canada has the potential to reconcile those mistakes and move forward as an example to others. Overall, I celebrate with hope that we can one day be this. I like that. And then Michelle says, I'm having a difficult time reconciling a country I've loved and being proud to be part of, and learning more about its horrible history. Just found out last year that her grandfather's half Micmac, but that it was hidden and seen as shameful,
Hmm.
which I believe that's more of Canada's past. But I'm hoping that now people are now. This is so me being at the center of this conversation. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to say it, but I'm going to say I recognize that I've not decentered. Thank you. I've not decentered myself in saying that. I think maybe as the new learnings coming out, people are identifying as FNMI, but that's me. Whoa, this is a cool thing for me. That's me at the center of what I just said,
I like you tripping
right?
on yourself.
Total privilege, not understanding it. So I'm going to say I get that. I get that I don't understand it. I get that I just did not decenter myself until I figured out that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. So now I've decentered. I don't really know what it's like, but I, as a human, I'm happy to hear when people say to me, "No, I am FM and I, and they choose to go deeper or not. That for me, it's an honor to hear them identify themselves, because I value that. So hey, you want to tell me, I'm here to listen. But I know that some people still. I've heard this firsthand. I've heard from a couple of people I know who do identify, but not publicly. They recognize their heritage, but they don't identify it. It's because they feel a distrust for the government. They feel a distrust that it will be used against them somehow, like it has been in the past. And I don't know what that feels like, so I can't say. But I tell them, thank you for sharing that with me. I feel honored that you would share with me that you were Indigenous. Um, I honor that, just like I honor anybody telling me where they come from, what they're about, and I won't hold it against them. But there is a distrust.
The
And it's
hope
strong.
the hope factor that the one person was mentioning about being a young country.
Mm-hmm.
I saw really, I don't know if it's Angela Starrett this morning, someone, could have been Javier. There was a there was a retweet, sort of a response to one of the responses to talking about the residential school, the stories and the pain that's emerged. Not new pain, just pain that's reemerged this past couple weeks. Is the sometimes it's often compartmentalized, and we talk about history like it's in the past. I think often in the future we do something very similar. I think with the future, and anything that keeps us from looking directly at where we are, for me, is problematic. So I don't get caught up in hope for the future. I try and just focus, what is it that we have right now to work on? And I won't credit Canada with potential. Not at this point. I feel for me, it's not a good way to kind of invest whatever equity work I want to do. It doesn't, for some, that may be what they want to do, that they need hope, that they want hope. And the hope is kind of like part of the fuel to motivate them. This thing that I saw post on Twitter this morning was a counter to the idea that this was a painful chapter, trying to compartmentalize currently the discussion that's reemerged about residential schools. And as I mentioned, I think there's another story emerging out of Brandon, Manitoba, that this is not a chapter. This is not a chapter. This is the whole rotten book that's being opened up. And the rotten book, for some, is Canada. So it's not like we no longer can say that these things are sort of siloed in this period of time. It is a continuing, active, and traumatic story that is still living. So I respectfully, if it is, kind of counter that idea that, Canada being a young country has any for me, that part doesn't matter. Because if let's say if we're rating if your 4-year-old has a habit of punching your 10-year-old in the face all the time, you have to deal with the fact that the 4-year-old is punching your 10-year-old in the face all the time. You don't sort of pause too long on the fact, well, they're 4 years old, they don't know better. At some point you have to deal with the harm that's being caused. And if your 4-year-old is punching your 10-year-old, you don't pause too long and say, well, hopefully when the 4-year-old gets older, they won't punch the 10-year-old in the face too much. So, right? Like, and that really, really trite and cheeky example, but I feel like that's where we're kind of at right now. I kind of go at the so what if for a young country. We have more than enough information to sort of keep us grounded in some honest work, to address and redress what is a living history.
Well, on those words, this was season 4, episode 38. Thanks, Clough.
You're welcome, dude. Have a fantastic day.
You too. Hopefully we'll see you on the battle bus later.
Yeah, I do want to play. I do want to play. I'm looking forward to a little bit of that. Okay, ciao,
Right
man.
on. See ya.